All right, we're back for part 2 of exercise progression. And I know this was a helpful topic because I saw some of the people that watched this in the clinic and they said that they really liked it. So thanks, Brittany.
Yeah.
We didn't finish everything that people wanted to know about. So Brittany's going to take over and continue on with talking about some of the exercises that not only you guys asked about, but some of the ones that we know that you're dying to do. Okay.
For sure. Thanks,
Take it
Mel.
away.
So why don't I start? A couple that we want to go through for sure today is talking about planks and potentially like breaking that down into bite-size, achievable kind of morsels versus having this belief that, okay, I'm now anywhere between 6 weeks or 12 weeks postpartum and I'm thinking about getting back to exercise. I signed up for Mommy Boot Camp and they're asking for 30 to 45 seconds of front plank. And I start with 5 seconds in and I feel uncomfortable, or I can't hold I have back pain or scar pain.
I'm terrified.
Or
I just don't think I should. Yeah.
That's right. So we'll break it down into simpler pieces and what it might look for as far as how you get back to that. And then talk a little bit about crunches, because there's a lot of scary information out there on the internet filled with do's and don'ts and avoid this. And I really do come at it from a lens that I believe people can get back to doing sit-ups. It is not the worst thing for women to get back to. It's just more how we get back to doing it. And so we can kind of go through a little Q&A about what we might look for, consider when you're getting back to that, and what some variations are, because there's easier variations for sit-ups as well.
Perfect.
Cool. Let's start with plank. See what my setup is like here today. The key is that you need to be able to see me, obviously.
That's perfect.
Okay. So when we think about front plank, to start people in clinically is 4-point hands and knees. It's a nice position to be able to even rediscover and find neutral spine. I'll use that quote, neutral spine, okay? But from a 4-point position, hands directly under the shoulders, knees directly under the hips, and about equal distance apart. Okay, a lot of times I find new moms come in and they love to find this position. So bum tuck, flex lumbar spine, they're either gripping like with their adductors or their bum, and they have a hard time finding more neutral. So even from here, you can work on finding the extremes of the movement. Some physios call it like cat-cow or cat-camel. Find the extremes and then find that happy place in the middle where our pelvis, our sit bones are basically directed towards the back wall.
And something would sit comfortably on the top of your butt and rest. Do you know what I mean? Like that you'd have like a cup that could sit on your butt. Yes.
Right.
That's okay.
I don't know, this might work. I might lose it.
Yeah.
So once we find this position, I would recommend for any of you out there that have been doing like Mel's Mommy Barriers program, you find your core breath in this position. Okay, so just breathe. As I inhale, I can feel my pelvic floor soften. As I exhale, gentle connection, and then thinking about the lower belly, the belly button pulling up and in towards the spine gently. Okay, so once you're able to be in this position and connect and start to find not necessarily losing that lower abdominal connection, but continue to breathe, then you can move yourself forward slightly. So we're bringing our hips into extension. As we're walking our arms out, trying to work towards a nice straight line, knees, shoulder, hips. The length of the lever is increasing, and we'll have to increase the demand of how we're stabilizing with the low abs. So again, thinking of the lower abdominals with that deep canister like a dial, we're calling it on a little bit more. but we're not going to something that's so challenging that we're needing to basically brace and breath hold. So we can work out into this position. You can think of a similar progression, but onto the elbows. Okay, another variation from here is just extending one knee. So the other one's in contact with the ground, but I've increased the length of the lever from one arm, from one leg. Okay, if you're able to still maintain this position nicely, and you're upwards of 20 to 30 seconds without difficulty, then you can try adding another layer. So basically what I look for is that with each level, we're able to maintain that neutral spine, you're able to breathe through it, we're not feeling any pain or discomfort. And I start low and build. So maybe you start at 4 sets of 10-second holds, building up to 15-second holds, 20-second holds, and so on. That's how I like to break up plank. Sometimes you see plank also from extended arms. Sorry, before I come back to sit. So to extended arms. Some people actually find this easier than this position. That's again, very individual, probably depending on your history of where you were prior to pregnancy, what your background is, what your birth experience was like. It's all very individual. So that's what I like for plank progression.
Perfect.
Again, just kind of breaking the belief that if I'm in a class environment and the instructors ask me to hold it for 30 seconds, and this is the exercise that was shown, that there are ways you can either make it easier so you can successfully hold the duration of time that they're asking for, or even pulse in and out of it. So hold it as long as you feel comfortable, take a rest as needed, and then continue to challenge yourself.
Yeah, and I just got off a telehealth session with a client who said she was feeling bummed because her friend was at a different place than she was. And so we just had this conversation, like, don't worry too much about what the other people are doing. Understand they're going through their own journey. And so just worry about, like, use your cues. Like, that's the downside of being in a group setting, is that instructor doesn't know what you're feeling. And so you know what you're feeling, and just kind of use yourself. And I think that's the benefit of kind of like understanding your symptoms, is that you can, okay, that's not a hard no. It's just your body saying, I'm just not there yet. Can you back it up? And yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I really I love to encourage people to use a journal and kind of document where they're at, where their symptoms are. Because a lot of times, like, I don't know about you, Mel, but I find people get lost in the middle ground, right? Because really it's just about progressively learning how to manage your condition, not necessarily like I'm cured,
yeah,
or I'm fixed.
Totally.
So it's this ongoing journey. And so if we reflect back on function and the things we're able to do or achieve or complete without symptom reproduction is
Win.
massive.
Totally.
Yeah, massive.
Okay, which one's next?
Okay, so then we had, we wanted to talk about sit-ups.
Yeah, sit-ups or kettlebell swings.
Okay, well, let's go through kettlebell swings next.
Okay.
And then we'll maybe finish off with crunches or sit-ups.
Okay.
So with kettlebell swings, there's different variations, Russian and American. A Russian kettlebell swing is when we swing the kettlebell up to shoulder height or eye level. And American is overhead. So first of all, I always recommend, depending on what the stage is, so that's my American, and then the Russian. So a few things here, like, it really depends on a lot of variables. So again, this is really, I would find to be a tricky one to provide a discussion in this kind of platform and then expect someone to walk away and do it proficiently if they hadn't had a lot of exposure or experience to that movement prior to you know, having your child. So a few things to think about, and a lot of where I see things go awry with the kettlebell swing is now that you're moving something quickly, so we have to control a load under velocity and a greater amplitude of movement. So as we're moving a load overhead, it's now asking for more control of our midline, because as our arm moves overhead, it's providing another vector to potentially lose control of the trunk. So it's even more complicated than thinking about I'm lying on the ground and I'm thinking about maintaining my midline as I move my leg. Now we have things moving from both ends. So I would always start with Russian because we're just moving the load through less range. Whereas if we're moving overhead, then we have a new layer of having to kind of call on our upper abdominals or the outer abdominals in addition to finding that the deep canister connection. So the other thing that I often see with kettlebell swings is as I'm swinging the bell, so when I allow the bell to come through the legs, it's just a hip hinge. So we broke that up in our last session when we were talking about deadlifts and hinging. It's just a hinge, but we're allowing that load to swing between our legs. As I'm standing and I'm extending my hips, so thinking of bum squeeze, that's what's propelling the kettlebell forward. So a lot of times what I see is people think that they're just pulling with their back. It's actually my bum doing the work. I'm staying connected to my midline. And it's this thinking that I'm standing or driving my knees to the floor that's propelling that load forward, okay? The other thing, depending on what symptoms people are experiencing, if it's leaking, for example, so I had a mom who had a complaint recently of leaking with kettlebell swings, and timing of breath can be very important here, okay? So it's that quick change in direction of the bell, going from between the legs to then starting to extend the hips forward. That can be a mechanism for people losing that, their continence mechanism. So I often say it's try and inhale as the bell comes in and exhale and connect with the pelvic floor as I'm just about to extend the hips through. So that's how I would train that movement. And again, this is it's very individual though, Mel, as you would know, like depending on the strategy of the person, I've actually had someone that I cued them to do the opposite.
Totally.
So yeah. I'd say as a general rule, that would be my starting point. But again, there's no greater value than an individualized assessment.
Totally. Because then it would be kind of like, okay, show me that movement, show me how you're doing it, and tell me when you're leaking. Is it right there? Or, you know what I mean? Like, because usually they'll be like, it's here. Like they'll be able to say that. And so then you can kind of figure out like, what is it? Are they kind of like too much gripping with their abdominals, which is making them pee? Or is it that they're losing their form and their pelvic floor doesn't feel like it can work? Are they really disconnected from the front of their pelvic floor that needs to close the urethra? Like, yeah. So I think that, like you said, are they generating all this power from their back instead of their glutes, or
Yeah. So again, I love the skill depending on kind of just where you're at. And it's for myself in the early postpartum days, I'm more of a huge advocate for slower, controlled, or strict type movements first.
Yeah.
And then adding layers. So it just really entirely depends on where you're at in that postpartum journey.
But I think all of this is good just for people to see that there's like how much goes on behind the scenes with these exercises, and just to also feel like your body's not failing you. Like these are hard, some of these are hard movements, and just, you know, just like anything, like if you were finding like a certain exercise hard on your knees, you would try to figure out, like, am I missing like a strength component in and around my quad or my hip or something that's making this happen? The same type of thing. You're just trying to figure out like what piece is kind of missing or not doing its part.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about like crunch type activities, because that's one of the number one things that people either tell me, when can I do these? I thought I never was supposed to do them. What's good and what's bad?
Yeah, so from my lens, again, I know I mentioned it in the start, I'm not a like no abs advocate myself. So when I see people in the clinic, again, depending on where they are in their postpartum journey, I will always start, I won't progress to abs until I know that they have that deep canister figured out. That's just a personal preference for myself. So again, if you've done the From the Inside Out program with Mel, heel slides are what you gave in finding that core breath. So again, with crunches, you can think about starting in that same position and finding that core breath. If you've gotten really proficient at finding that connection, core breath connection, doing the heel slides, you can even progress the lower leg challenge to elevating the foot, being able to stay in control of the pelvis. Coming up to 90, having one leg extend.
Brittany, will you exaggerate your breath a bit just so that people can like hear it?
So that's how I would train it first, that inhale, exhale, connect. Even during my exhale, I can move. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, people are gonna need to take that time to like reset, reconnect with the breath. Inhale, relax, exhale, connect, and move the leg. I always have people like only move the leg to the range that you're able to stay in control of that canister and continue to breathe. Because as you add a layer, if I elevate one leg and then slide one in contact with the ground, my breath and my connection is the same. Inhale, relax, exhale, connect, and move. As people get more proficient with that, you can stay connected and continue to breathe. So that's kind of like, that's where we're going to with that. If you've gotten to like a foot elevated variation and able to continue to breathe, or for me, I'm connected and talking to you guys. So if you're able to maintain that and complete, like, for example, a series of 10 reps per side, then you can try a crunch variation. Now with crunch variations, you can have varying degrees. Essentially what we're doing is finding that core breath from the beginning as step one. So we don't just throw our arms up and do a sit-up, for example. We have to still start at the beginning with that core breath. And then I want to think about tucking my chin, and I'm going to basically like roll my shoulders up off the mat. If I do that by keeping my hands low and reaching for my ankles, that's essentially like an easier variation. Okay, so if I'm reaching here, so I'm going to just think about like curling up. So I tuck my chin and curl my shoulders so my shoulder blades are off the ground, and then roll down. What I would look for here, like if anybody had diagnosis of diastasis, that's where you're looking for any doming or pooching of the abdomen as you're crunching. And if you do observe that, for me, that would be my indicator that that is a little bit too challenging for you yet, in that you're not able to maintain the deep canister, your lower abdominals, to resist against the increase in intra-abdominal pressure.
Yeah.
That would be where I would say, yes, at the moment, if I was seeing that, that's when I would scale it back, for example.
Totally. Or anything for that matter. Like, I feel like my vagina feels pressure, or do you know what I mean? I usually say, like, because they'll often say, can I do this? And I say, just do it. Show me, like, and tell me what it feels like. And they'll point something out. They'll tell you why it doesn't feel good. I feel unsupported. I feel like my back hurts. I feel like I'm going to pee. I don't know. But then I say, okay, now do it the other way. Like, do it how you learned, with the core breath. Because sometimes I think that's where we get stuck, is like, they learn these, I always say the stupid, boring exercises. Like, they learn those from us, but then they want to go do the fun ones. I'm like, oh, no,
Yeah.
like, try to make them together. Cause that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for everything to work together again. And so by you, like, first you demonstrated just like the core breath. So that's kind of paying attention to, okay, the deepest muscles in our body. And then I ask them to do the movement how they normally would. And usually what they do is they call on all the external muscles, but the little boring, stupid ones forgot to come along for the ride. And so then I'm like, okay, now use what you learned and like try to incorporate those. And you can see the light bulb go off in their head. They're like, oh, that felt different. And so see, like, I'm not making you do those dumb exercises for nothing. You just need to kind of now figure out how to make them work for you, right?
That's right. And I see that all the time in our 8-week ab rehab program. The whole foundation or premise behind the program is, yes, in the initial weeks, we're working on the kind of the boring stuff. And then we are challenging that through squats, deadlifts, rig work, gymnastic skills. And it's, like you said, it's amazing because as soon as it's a new novel task, it's like you forget what to kind of bring that forward.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like what I was hoping people would take away from this session, is that, because like, we don't, like, well, I would speak for both of us in saying that we don't think that there's anything specifically that women shouldn't do postpartum. Okay. There are some things that are harder than others. And generally, when you're looking at doing an exercise postpartum, first ask yourself, is there something that my body says no? Like, is it saying no, don't do it for whatever reason? And if so, what? Like, what is it saying? Is it, like I said, is it your back? Do you feel apprehension in your vagina? Do you feel weak in your abdomen? Like, what is it that doesn't feel good? Then, or is it fear? Like, or is it just that you're like, I didn't think I should, no one's given me permission? I personally always say, try it. Like, just try it first. If it's fear, try it and figure out what doesn't feel good. Then try to go back and use the concepts that Brittany just talked about in the last couple sessions. How can I break this down? Like, whether it be, okay, was it jumping jacks? Was it planks? How could I make this easier for my body, to the point where if I use that deep core breath, can I take those symptoms away? Great. Let's see if I can kind of progress my endurance. Great. Let's add on something a little bit harder, so that I feel like I'm making it a bit harder. Can I still maintain that and make all my muscles coordinate? Yes. Let's make it harder. And next thing you know, you're going to notice, wow, look how much my body can do. I'm back to what I was, right? Yeah. So I think I like it, Brittany. I think it's a good way to, your brain works similar to mine. It's like methodical, and like, break it down and notice what you can do, and use like the slowness to your advantage. Like, I think unfortunately a lot of the exercises out there are fast, and there's nothing wrong with getting back to fast, intense exercise, but I think your brain and your body are going to feel like they're not there yet.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's, my personal passion is hopefully providing that support for women, and understanding that, there doesn't need to be that barrier as far as like, oh, wow, either I find the barrier or the acceptance of it being a normal byproduct of having children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any last take homes?
No, my main thing is obviously if you feel like you need some more guidance, like reach out.
Yeah.
If you're in the East Coast area, that's where I am. So I'm happy to help anybody that has additional questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that's what you'll notice is all this information is something that you can kind of use, but then don't ever hesitate. I even too look forward to seeing people myself for an assessment because I'm like, I think this is what's going on, but you can't really see yourself objectively very well. So that's where it helps for someone else to take a look and give you some suggestions to work on. But anyways, thank you so much, Brittany. And everybody, please do. We really appreciate when the comments that you provide after watching this help show other people. Like the way that Facebook and Instagram works is if people don't comment, it doesn't show it to as many people. And I really want people to be able to have the advantage, at least see this pop up in their feed so that they can have a chance to watch it. So whether you like it or just type us something about what you got out of it, it helps us so much and directs what else we talk about. So anyways, I think next week I'm doing a session on prolapse. And then the week after, Tamara's doing one on diastasis.
Perfect.
Okay, everybody, have a good day. Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, bye.